sales equaling your debt, depending on your margins, it can pretty much put your lights out. Japan really looks horrific. Here's the United States. Let's see if I've got this right. Yeah, Japan. And the U.S., we've had a steady growth, and we're at approximately 100% here. But this doesn't include municipal and state debt. And there's some very disturbing articles about those. So our debt isn't really 14 trillion or 15 trillion. You've got to add muni and state debt, so it's closer to 20 trillion. Then you got to look at indebtedness of the average American versus these other countries' populations. Okay, so that's one metric. Debt. Debt is a tax on our ability to pay for things, to invest in things, to have capital, to expand. You know, the other huge problem we have is with the healthcare system. So getting back to the bottom line, we're in heavy debt. Our manufacturing sector, a lot of it has gone overseas. We don't have a good industrial policy compared to some countries in research and development. China is going to be overtaking us in patents annually if they haven't already. Germany has managed to maintain a pretty good manufacturing sector by having a strong industrial policy. Switzerland. So we also have a fairly unhealthy population, which leads, believe it or not, you know, to very high healthcare expenditures in terms of heart disease, obesity, and so forth relative to industrialized democracies. And let's take a quick look at education. Here is a map of education and mean years of schooling, for example. And let's see, where is United States in here? Let's find us. We're at number 24. So there's 23 countries ahead of us in mean years of schooling, including, rather ironically, Cuba and Libya. Where's Libya? Australia, New Zealand, Iceland, Ireland are at the top. Finland is very high. And Finland and New Zealand do very well, and Korea in their standardized testing. So let's look at some testing scores. So the U.S. here is bottom in math, 23rd in science, and 17th in reading. So we also are having problems with our education system. Another interesting factor is that K-12 education is $536 billion a year, and actually just outright payments on debt is equal to that. Basically, if you look at the federal debt, a lot of it is driven by the war on terror. Now, if we look at issue of prisoners in the world, if you'll see here, I'll make this a bit smaller. The U.S. has 2 million prisoners. We have more prisoners than any other country in the world, even though our population is much smaller than China or India's. So this is a big tax on our economy. And so, you know, poverty, lack of education, poor health, these are all factors that can end up creating a higher criminal class. So we have, I think, a real problem here. And where's the money? Okay, so let's look again. Where is the money? Well, 29% of our public sector is on public health care spending. So how are you going to cut that? 38% is defense and corrections related. And we have incarceration rate about 4 times any other country when you look at these comparable metrics. Okay, so let's go through a few more issues here. So my argument is basically that it's Ron Paul's argument, which is to draw to, what we do is we cut our defense and corrections spending, and we free that money up. Hopefully it goes into capital formation for businesses and in some way impacts poverty, which will lead to people having more money so they can pay more taxes or pay for private education. We see a rise in education, rise in industrial competitiveness, rise in GDP, rise in economic productivity. And then, perhaps, once we have a much better parity economically, we could look at regrowing the military. But our military, combined with our allies, Japan, South Korea, France, Britain, Germany, is the vast majority of the entire world's military. So what is the threat we're concerned about? The real threat is economic decline due to very high levels of indebtedness. So let's see here. So the U.S. is the strongest military in the world today, but we can't perpetuate that if we end up 11th economically in the world. That's for sure. And the question is, how will these other countries treat us after we have tried to maintain a nearly illegal level of intervention compared to other countries' international law? The U.S. and especially certain politicians, let's say, don't like international law, don't care about it, and believe we have the right to do whatever we want, wherever we want. Now imagine if Brazil, Russia, India, and China all followed that policy, that they can intervene wherever they want, whenever they want, including right here in our country. Now, this issue about Iran obtaining nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons are a 1950s technology. Now, of course, they're a great concern, but there are lots and lots of new emerging technologies between now and 2020 that are going to be really more important because they'll have the ability to stop nuclear attacks, destroy nuclear information systems, literally penetrate right through walls of buildings with nano robots, spy systems. So there are, what we really are concerned about is our research and development capability and our manufacturing capability. And if China has got most of the chip factories and miniaturization systems, we may find ourselves in a problem vis-a-vis countries like China or India as they get more and more manufacturing. This manufacturing will be able to be used for competing with other countries. Okay, so the U.S. is weakening in many key economic competitiveness factors. Another problem was that our economy grew in the area called FIRE, finance, insurance, and real estate. These don't actually put any food on the table. They each have their role, but they don't do manufacturing, they don't do agriculture, they don't do education, they don't do healthcare. They are a speculative service on top of real production. And growth of debt. I think I have some information on debt here that might be useful. Okay, here is debt, government debt, and in relation to the economy. Over years, I believe this is 2010, column B, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I think I sorted by 15. And the United States is the 10th most indebted country in the world relative to our total economy, out of 172 countries. So we're not the most in debt country in the world. We are the 10th most in debt country in the world. Portugal, Ireland, Greece, what they call pigs, I believe, Italy, they're worse. But look at that, we're just a hair under them. Iceland has lower debt levels forecasted than we do. And Iceland just went through a horrible meltdown where their whole banking system collapsed. France, let's see, United Kingdom. So what's up with that? And where's the money going to come from? And then our reputation in the world is another question. Can we continue to run drone programs in 7 countries? Can we continue to rattle sabers over places like Iran? And how will this affect our standing with developing nations later on? Okay, to be continued.